Hello, my name is Araceli Garcia, and this is my participating video for Lamar University. In this setting, we are going to be in a positive learning community, addressing the needs of at-risk students who have failed the first STAR administration, and planning a week-long intervention program. We're going to be working collaboratively to come up with the best strategies for students to succeed. This is Ms. Felicitas Garcia, our reading department chair. Ms. Sarah Torres is our special ed resource teacher who will be joining us soon, and I am the newcomer and recent immigrant reading teacher here at Irene Garcia Middle School.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Everybody got a copy of our agenda. And on our agenda, we have, as our first thing to talk about, we have the data segregation chart. We're going to be discussing the data of our 8th grade kids that didn't pass the START test and will be taking the second administration. We're also going to be talking about, on number 2, we're going to be talking about the STAR strategies by the weekest objectives that we're going to have. On number 3, we have the interactive sessions. We're going to be talking about the designing of the lessons that we're going to have for these kids. And we're also going to be talking about technology integration that we can use with these kids. And eventually, we're going to talk about how we're going to be creating the groups and the teachers that are going to be responsible to help these kids for the second administration of the test. On our data desegregation, Ms. Garcia, we are going to be, we analyzed data and we were able to create 3 groups. We're going to have Group A, Group B, and Group C. On Group A, according to the data that we studied, these kids were very close to pass the test. They were from 1 to 6 questions away from meeting standard,
That's
the
excellent.
level number 2. Yes, ma'am. And on this group, we are going to have 40 kids, 40 students. The 40 students are going to be divided among their teams. We're going to have team 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, our recent immigrant kids, and our special ed population. So for our 8.1 kids, we're going to have 11 kids in this group, and we're going to have 1 teacher helping these kids. More than likely, Ms. Cantu, the teacher, is going to be helping these kids. For 8.2, we have a total of 12 kids, and for this group, we're going to have Ms. Gonzalez tutoring these kids. 8.3, for 8.3, we have 12 kids, and for this group, we're going to have Ms. Zapata helping these kids. The NCRI group, we're going to combine the NCRI group with your class, so you're going to be tutoring your kids, and we are going to have Ms. Torres helping our special ed population, and we're also going to have 2 instructional assistants helping with the special ed kids. Something very important to consider with our special ed group is that our special ed group, 92% of our kids from special ed took the test in the computer.
Oh, what is the computer test like? I didn't know.
It is very similar to the Telpas test. So the students already, before the first administration of the test, they receive an orientation on how to use the tools. There's a highlighter.
Okay.
They have they were already familiar with the tools that they use for the test.
They did a tutorial.
Exactly.
Does it read them the instructions, or does it read like their stories, or is it only certain things that are read to them, like the test questions?
They have to click on the word that they want. Basically, they have to highlight the section that they want the computer to that they want the computer to be to read to them. So we're planning to have these kids practicing on paper, because the strategies, we want to show the strategies on paper, but we also want these kids to continue practicing, because they will be taking the computer test. So we have a total of 40 kids for this first group. Once again, they were from 1 to 6 questions
away from passing.
Yes, ma'am. So for this group, I'm pretty sure they are going to pass the second time that we take the test. Our second group, Group B, once again, we're going to have 5 groups. And on these 5 groups, we're going to start with team 8.1. Before I say that, I'm sorry. These kids were from 7 to 12 questions again from meeting the standard level 2. So we are going to be spending more time with these kids, and I'll go over the schedule of each group in a minute. But I wanted to show you the quantity of kids that we have for these in
34.
Yes, we have a total of 34. We have less kids here. So for team 8.1, we have 6 kids. And once again, Ms. Cantu is also going to be helping us with these kids. From team 8.2, we have 10 kids. Ms. Gonzalez is going to be responsible for this group. For team 8.3, we're going to have Ms. Zapata. We have a total of 10 kids. the recent immigrants, we have 3 kids, and we're gonna be combining this group with the previous group. And for special ed, we are going to have 6 kids. And the same thing with this group. They're gonna be practicing in the computer, and they're gonna be practicing on paper. So as mentioned before, we have a total of 34 kids for this group. Finally, our last group, this is our C group, and these kids, we have very few kids. We have a total of 16 kids right here, and these kids were from 13 to 18 questions to pass the test. And we're gonna be dividing these kids, but the thing, according to schedule, the way we're gonna work with these kids, the ELA teachers are gonna be responsible for these kids, and they're gonna see these kids first period, which is from 7:20 to 8:18, and then they're gonna see them again after. It's gonna be after lunch. It's gonna be during EMT, during the tutoring time that we have during the day, and that's gonna be from 1:08 to 2:03. So they're gonna, basically with this group, they're gonna be working one-to-one. We wanna have the teachers working close with these kids,
and they're really small groups.
Exactly.
4, 6.
For 81 we have 4 kids. For 8.2 we have 4 kids. For 8.3 we have 3 kids. And in here, NCRA and special ed, these 2 groups were already included in our previous classes.
Right.
Going back to group A, we're gonna see these kids. We're gonna be able, the way we're planning to do this is that these kids are gonna be serviced twice a day. So we are gonna have the ELA teachers working with these kids, but we're also going to have 2 reading specialists, our special ed teacher, and our NCRI teacher working with them. So we're gonna have 2 sessions, and we're gonna be rotating the kids. And
are we are we gonna have individual sessions, or are we gonna be all together, or how is everybody gonna go about doing this?
The 8th grade teachers, the ELA teachers decided to have the kids in their classroom because if we want to follow, well, we have to follow the rules, right? So we have to have 10-to-1 ratio. Oh. So every ELA teacher is going to keep 10 kids, the groups in the morning. So these kids are going to go to their ELA teachers. Every ELA teacher is going to have 10 kids. The rest of the kids are going to report to the library where the reading specialist with us, exactly. And we're going to have different activities in the library. Mm-hmm. So in the ELA classrooms, the kids are going to be working on reading passages. The teachers are going to go over the reading strategies again and everything that they need to do, prepare them for the test again. In the library, these kids are going to be working with activities, basically hands-on activities. We're going to incorporate the technology. We're gonna be using the iPads. We're going to have Kahoot for them. And we're going to be creating a booklet. And the first activity that we have in mind is that we are going to teach or reteach the vocabulary words that they need to know for the questions. We're not going to go into the stories yet because that's what the ELA teachers are doing, right. But we're going to reinforce the use of the vocabulary, the words that are used in the questions for these kids. Because if they don't understand what it's being asked, they're not going to be able to answer the questions.
And it's also service because, of course, if they're already doing reading passages for 2 hours, they don't want to come to the library with us and continue doing it for another, because the total amount of time that they'll see us is from 8 right till 12:30, yes, so it's about 4.5 hours of reading passages. Yes, so it's great that we're able to vary the scenarios.
Yes, ma'am. We're gonna have different strategies, and we're, like you said, it's gonna be a variation of things. That way, we keep them engaged, because it is gonna be. I think it's gonna be way too much if we give them 4.5 hours with reading passages only. It's way too much. This year, since we're not gonna have SSI for math, our kids didn't. Because of the new TICs in math, our kids this year they could only take they could only take the test once. Previous years, our 8th graders are allowed to take the test 3 times, like in reading. But since last year the TICs in math changed, the TA decided to have the test only once for math. So we as ELA teachers have that advantage this year because we don't have to share the kids
in the past
with
you
math.
had to share?
Yes, ma'am. Because in previous cases, the kids unfortunately, some kids don't pass reading or math.
And they're both, the second administration is around the same time for math and reading?
Yes, ma'am. It's exactly the same dates. We test on Tuesday. It's always on a Tuesday for math, and then Wednesday reading. So for the tutoring sessions, we had to share the kids that didn't pass both administrations. So this year we have extra time, and we don't have to be fighting for the kids because the kids are only for reading. We don't have SSI. As a result, we are not going to have summer school, or there's not a second or third administration for math like we have for reading, because we already had the first administration. We're about to have the second administration, and in case these kids do not pass the second administration again, then we start the paperwork to send them to summer school and provide them the third opportunity for them to take the test.
So in summer school, they would only be doing it for reading, not necessarily for math, right?
The district is gonna be offering math services, but it's gonna be for a selected group. It's not gonna be like a tutoring session for the kids in order for them to prepare them again for the test. They will have math teachers teaching summer school, and we are gonna have students attending summer school for math. But it's gonna be something totally different. It's basically prepare them for ninth grade.
Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
great.
Yes, ma'am. So any questions that you have on the data?
Well, I know that we're going to be having two groups, and you said that the 8th grade teachers are going to be having the 10-to-1 ratio, doing reading strategies, and they're going to be coming to the library with us.
Yes, ma'am.
Which is when right now we're going to plan on the interactive sessions, how we can motivate them and how we can.
Yes, ma'am.
Of course, you mentioned the teaching the vocabulary on Monday and going over that so they can know the questions, and then we can do a weekly plan of what else we're going to be able to teach them, maybe to coincide with what the reading teachers are teaching that particular day. If they happen to do a reading passage on inferencing, maybe we can do a little activity or technology on inferencing to go along and plan the day, a day by day.
Yes,
because we only have 1 week before the second administration, correct?
Correct.
It is on Monday?
We're going to be testing on Tuesday.
On Tuesday.
Tuesday.
But we won't have the academy on Monday. This academy will be only for 1 week.
We're only going to have the kids with us for 1 week.
Oh,
the following week. Yes, and whatever the teachers, because we want everything to be uniform. So if the teachers, when we go over, because we have to go by the week's category. So the teachers are going to bring their data in, and we're going to go into what exactly they want us to help them with. So like you said, if they're teaching inferencing, we're going to have activities in the library that are going to be talking about exactly. They're going to be, because we want to be uniform, and we don't want to have the teachers teaching inferencing and the reading specialist over here in the library teaching main idea.
Right,
because
it's going to confuse them further.
Yeah. Exactly. So for the interactive sessions, what we're planning to do in the library, it's we are going to have index cards. Day 1, we're gonna introduce the kids with the vocabulary words that they're gonna be using for the question, for them to know, to understand what the question is asking. So we have an activity for them. They're gonna be creating their
flashcards with the ring we had mentioned.
Yes, ma'am.
Great.
Yes, ma'am. And it's we're gonna ask the kids to create it, but to have those flashcards with them every day, because they're gonna be using those flashcards when they go to their ELA teacher.
It's an excellent resource. They can always turn back if they come across that word and they don't understand.
Yes, ma'am.
Instead of, well, I mean, obviously they would use a dictionary in the real test, but hopefully the fact that they're referring back to that resource helps them and remember it when the real test comes
Yes,
around.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
That's great. So they're going to be bringing that every single day, the flashcards.
Yes, ma'am. So we're gonna go over the vocabulary word. We're gonna give them an example and a picture. And since our district and our campus service a lot of ELL kids, we're also gonna tell these kids the word in Spanish so they can make the connection. Because sometimes
they're cognitive, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Exactly. So they might not understand the word in English, but if you tell them the word in Spanish or they make a connection of it, it's gonna be easier for them to, I guess, to get one-to-one.
Especially, I can see that as an NCRI teacher, because I mean, a lot of the teachers do come with a lot of great formal education from Mexico. A lot of them don't. I mean, we work with everything, but the ones that do have a lot of formal education, when I'm introducing vocabulary or doing an activity, I say some of the words in Spanish and they know exactly what I'm talking about. Similes and metaphors, you just translate them and they know because they've learned it in the past. Of course, there are some that don't know, but it's just a matter of explaining the word. So, but it does help a lot, the cognitive. It's an excellent idea.
And that's another thing that it's the reason why we're analyzing data, because of the population that we have. So we also need to take into consideration the number of ELL kids that we have, because for the ELL kids we need to have a special instruction, a different instruction with those kids.
Oh, we're going to separate them?
We're not going to separate them, but I want the teachers to know who our ELL kids are in case they need the extra help. For the reading test, we're allowed to use the dictionary, so we're going to remind the kids to use it in case they don't understand the word. Because there are going to be certain words on the test that you don't have to be an ELL kid in order for you not to understand
Of course,
the word.
yes, I'm sure.
So we're going to remind the kids that they're more than welcome to use the dictionary, and it's going to be available for them. So day one, we're planning to, with the ELA teachers are going to start with the reading passage, but the reading specialists, we are going to be in the library creating these flashcards. That's for our week one. We're also creating a type of interactive notebook for the kids.
I believe the interactive notebooks, the one we spoke about in the previous English language arts meeting, right? The one with figurative language.
Yes, ma'am.
And all we need to do is just basically meet with the reading teacher so that we can coincide on whatever it is that they're teaching in a particular passage to coincide with the figurative language in the page that we're doing.
That is correct.
Great.
Yes,
And I
ma'am.
believe some of the things were text structure, figurative language. What were some of the other things?
We had plot.
True.
Yes,
Plot.
we had plot and analyzing plot. We had figurative language, as you mentioned. We're also going to include drama. We're going to include, I have it right here.
Interactive notebooks are great because the kids they like the cut and paste, and it's just a reinforcement to where they're already learning. So it's great if we can just get together and coincide on what they're going to learn that day. So if they read a story on plot, the questions are on plot, then they come to us and receive an extra dosage of plot. That's great.
And as I mentioned, 2 hours and a half will be more than enough time for them to go over the reading strategies and everything that they need to prepare them to take the test again. And then once they go to the library, there's gonna be more movement. So our classes are gonna be more, what's the word?
Interactive. More.
That's the word that I was looking for. Yes, ma'am.
Because I believe you mentioned that for that library setting, we're going to have 4 small groups with led by 4 teachers, myself, yourself, Ms. Torres, Mr. Flores, and we're all going to be teaching the same activity, but just so it could be a 10-to-1 ratio.
Yes, ma'am.
And the kids are going to be changing.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. The way we want to do it is we want to create type of stations for them. On one station, they're going to be working on one activity, and station 2, 3, and so on and so forth. Work every 10 or 15 minutes, depending on the amount of work that they have at every station. We're going to have the time, so we're going to be rotating.
To try to get the same objective, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, great.
That way, it's going to be more interactive for them, more movement, and they're going to be engaged. Because 4 hours and a half, it's a little bit...
and even, too, just to be sitting in they already sat in class for 2 hours and a half, just to be in the library for an additional 2 hours. It's great that we're making it interactive. And I believe we have some carps that you mentioned.
Yes,
we're going to do that for the reading.
Yes, ma'am. Another, we've done it for the science department, where we have a science camp. And we use, like you mentioned, we have stations for the kids, and we create a type of classroom where we have every 15 minutes we have an activity, and then we rotate. So we start at 8 and we finish at 12:30. So during that time, the kids are able to visit 14 stations. On 14 stations about science, where they're working on hands-on activities. But since you're every 14-15 minutes you're moving from station to station, it's very interactive. So the kids think we're playing.
Because it's a little cute tent.
Yes,
and all that is very. I remember going to actually a teacher in service where it was like that. There were tents, there was curtains all over. It was like a little mini classroom, and the kids got to go and visit, to see how all the classes and see different teachers, different activities, and I loved it as a teacher, and I'm sure our students will.
And the kids have a lot of fun too. And the teacher is there. There's a table for the kids and all the materials that they're going to use. And the teacher also has a computer, the projector. So it's like a mini classroom with everything. With
technology and...
Yes, ma'am. Everything in there. So those 15 minutes go like super fast. So they think we're playing.
Yes.
So that, because every activity you go to, you're playing a science game. But in reality, we are practicing for the test. So I want to mimic the same thing for ELA. We're going to tell the kids that we're going to be playing games, but we're going to be moving them from station to station, and that way it's not that complicated for them to stay with us, to have their attention.
Because their energy levels, I'm sure, drain after a while.
Yes, ma'am, and it's going to be a week. So, and after that, here's the test.
Right.
So,
I think they're really going to look forward to the camps and, the little interchanging and all that. That's going to be great. And they're going to be, I'm sorry.
No,
they're going to be rotating within their group, or they're going to stay with Team 8-1, Team 8-2, Team 8-3. They're going to rotate like that.
Yes, ma'am. We're going to try to keep them. They already know their groups. They already know who they're working, and in order for us to alleviate
the burden or the
yes,
hassle.
and the stress outside the classroom, the teachers are going to be the one going to the ELA classroom and bringing the kids to the library. That way, we don't have kids going to the restroom without teachers know. So everything is very well organized.
Very structured. That's
very
great.
structured. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We're also going to be taking attendance, and we're having a meeting with the kids. We're creating part of the planning is to create a PowerPoint presentation for the kids, and on this presentation, we're going to tell them the rules and the expectations that we're going to have for them. So on the rules and the expectations, of course, we're going to have attendance, that they have to be 100% of the time from Monday to Friday, because we really need the tutoring in order for them to pass.
Absolutely.
And also we're going to tell them that one person misbehaving and not trying to participate, but that person is going to have consequences. We're going to be calling parents, very similar to what we do during the year. But I guess my main message for the kids is that we only have 1 week for them to take it seriously, because they really need to pass the second administration of the test if they want to be promoted to the next school year.
And I believe you spoke with Mr. Galvan, our principal, about it, and he's on our page. He wants to help us as far as consequences for the kids. I mean, I'm sure the kids will realize that we're there to help them, and they will want to put in all their effort. But I think Mr. Galvan, like you mentioned, has been he's going to be able to help us out if any behavior issues arise, or as far as incentives as well. He's going to be supporting us.
Correct, yes, ma'am.
Great.
And if the kids are not there 100% of the time, if there's a problem with misbehaving, the kids are not going to be allowed to participate in any after-school activities.
Oh, he's approved that already? That's
Yes,
excellent.
ma'am.
That's
Yes,
great
ma'am.
support from his part.
Yes, ma'am. We're going to have a prom dance that the teachers are already planning for the kids. So if we don't have perfect attendance with our kids, they're not going to be allowed to participate. So, and it's not something, because the way we're going to present it to these kids is not, don't see it as something negative. It's just see it as, I'm going to work this hard, I'm going to have this dance as a result of.
Mm-hmm.
But also, if I don't work, I'm not going to be allowed to go. So it's 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
It's 50% from the teacher, 50% from the student. And then if we add them, it's 100%, and we have a great team.
That sounds great. No, I know. As you're also the technology specialist. You mentioned that they're going to have technology, iPads to play Kahoot, and you mentioned something about a smart board. I'm not familiar with the smart boards. How are they going to use the smart?
Yes, ma'am.
board?
We're going to have several stations where students, our special ed department has the smart boards.
Oh.
So I talked to our technician here, and he was able to install interactive games to the computers that we're using for the smart boards. So one of the stations is going to be about poetry. So we're going to have an interactive game on the interactive board where the kids are going to be playing again to review poetry.
Oh, wow.
On another one for for synonyms and antonyms and how to use the dictionary. We're going to have another one for inferencing, and we have inferencing, text structure, main idea. But once again, we have a lot of resources that we can use with the kids. But we're basically going to be designing our reading camp in the library based on the data that the teachers are going to bring us.
Provide us.
Yes, ma'am. It is going to be very prescribed. We're going to have the teacher, the ELA teacher, since the ELA teacher is the one that sees these kids every day, during the day, I want the teachers to tell us exactly what they want us to do.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of resources to use with the kids, but I want this to be very prescribed for the kid, according in teacher input, feedback, because they're the experts.
Right.
They are the ones that see these kids every day. We see, in my case as a reading specialist, I only service 35
Eighth graders.
8th graders, and I don't see, we have a total of 314 8th graders, so I don't see all of them, but the ELA teachers do.
Yes.
So I want the activities that we're going to have in the library, I want them designed according to the students' needs, based on the teachers' input.
Great.
So that's what our meeting is going to be about. So the resources that we can have, the ideas that we can bring to the table, it's amazing. We have an awesome team, but we will need to wait for the teachers and see what exactly they want us to do.
That's great. And I know I'm sure inferencing, we've seen the data. I don't know if it's targeted by objective, but I've always in the past teaching, I know inferencing is one of the big weaknesses. Did that continue to prevail in this report, or we weren't able to see it like that?
No, ma'am. It's exactly the same thing. Before, our inferencing was tested in our objective 4, Now it's embedded. Now the START test is divided into categories: category 1, category 2, and category 3. And we have inferencing everywhere.
Oh,
Before it was only an objective 4. Now we have inferencing everywhere in the 3 categories.
Is there a way of finding out if the student is particularly weak in inferencing? Based on the data?
Based on the data, it is tricky. We can find a way, but the thing is that the level of the START test comes at a different level. It's way different from what we had before when we have task. And task was very, like, since we had 4 objectives, it was very I guess prescribed on every
I remember it being targeted by objective, like, and I remember seeing my student, oh, he was weak in inferencing, he was weak in different.
But now with the START test, it's very broad.
Oh.
The data tells you a lot, but the inferencing is always going to be there. It's at a higher level.
So that's obviously why we need the teacher input, and that would be excellent for the
ma'am.
teachers to give us insight into what they see and observe in the classroom is one of the weakest objectives, which I'm assuming is inferencing is all over.
And because of the population of the kids that we service, it's inferencing, it's a little bit more complicated for our kids.
Because at a high cognitive level.
Yes, ma'am. We have a lot of ELL kids that the only time that they practice English is here in school. They go home and they speak Spanish. They go to the supermarket and everything in Spanish. Because we're very close to Mexico. We're like 10 minutes away from Mexico. Even the advertisement that we see around in our community, it's in Spanish.
Most of it is in Spanish,
yes,
right?
ma'am.
And you don't really need, in the outside world, you don't really need English to get around. I mean, you go to the mall, everything's in Spanish.
Yes, ma'am. So a lot of our kids don't see the need. They don't see the need of learning the language because everything around them is in Spanish. So we as educators are always fighting that battle.
Right.
Because they don't understand, and they're kids. They're still kids. I know we teach middle school, but they're still kids. And they tell you, Miss, why do I have to learn I don't need
English.
it.
I don't need it because they see around it that they're successful and that they're okay without without English.
Yes, ma'am.
It's unfortunate. It's a very difficult situation that we work with because outside, and a lot of people say, well, as an ESL teacher or as students learning the second language, it'd be great because they're immersed. They learn the language right away, but that's not the case because they're not totally immersed. Outside school, it's like a second Mexico for the most part. I mean, everything's in Spanish outside, so that doesn't help them. It's important that we, of course, tell them the importance of learning English and practicing English because even though they might hear Spanish outside, of course, English is what's going to be in the university career level. So it's important that.
And the poverty level as well. Because as you mentioned before, when you have a kid that is very strong in L1 in Spanish, it is very easy to transition, right. To make the transition to L2. I grew up in Mexico and my main education was in Mexico, but my L1 was very strong. So when I came to the US and I made that transition, it was super easy for me. It was very easy because my L1, my Spanish, was very strong. My education in Mexico was very strong. But not a lot of our kids that we have here are in the same situation. When I was in Mexico, I used to attend private school.
Wow.
So the private school in Mexico, it's at a different level than public school.
In Mexico?
In Mexico.
Would you say it's at the same level of public school here or no? Definitely no. It's higher than here.
It is different. The system is different. I will say yes.
It's more cognitively challenging. And I know, and I've seen it as an ESL teacher. I've worked with ESL students for about 6, 7. This is my 7th year actually, and I've seen different types that come from different types of Mexico, and of course some of them are completely very educated in their formal education, and a lot of them do come from private schools.
Yes,
so it's great that they're able to do everything in Spanish already, and all they have to do is learn the language to be able to transfer the inferencing skills, the generalization, all of that, and they're able to transfer it. But unfortunately, for the most part, that's like 2-3% maybe. The majority come with a very weak background in Spanish, even though they've been to school in Mexico, or some haven't, or some attend school. I don't know if you're familiar with how Mexico does school. In some states, they only go to school either in the morning or in the afternoon because of the poverty levels. They can't afford to teach them the entire day, so they basically only get about 3-4 hours a day.
When you go to public school, that's the way it is. When you go to private school, you go all day. So in my case, when I used to go to school in Mexico, I was in school like very similar to what we have here in the U.S. 8 to 4. You were in school, you had activities after school. The system is very similar, but your parents have to pay for it.
That's very unfortunate. And the public is only 4 hours. Is that the majority of the places in Mexico?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And then nowadays, or now the kids that we have now, because of the things that are happening in Mexico, a lot of these kids don't even have the education in Mexico.
They don't even get those 4 hours.
Because of everything that is happening in Mexico, a lot of the schools are closed, no teachers, everything that is going on, all the bad things that are going on are affecting our kids. And the kids are, there are families that are moving to the U.S. and those are the kids that we're receiving, especially in your classroom, where they don't have education in L1. They don't
know how to read. I mean, I have a student that cannot read in Spanish, cannot add, and the circumstances weren't favorable for him where he was, and I believe we shared a student, he just wasn't. He didn't learn his first native language, so, and at this level in middle school, that we cannot teach them phonics or go lower. We have to teach them on grade level material, which is unfortunate because the student is not prepared.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's what we're going to be dealing with, because the NCRI kids are going to be together.
They are going to be included, and they're going to be in the groups. I don't want the NCRI kids or the special ed population to be segregated to one. Yes, ma'am. I want them to be included. Every kid can learn from
each other. That's great.
Each other. Yes, ma'am.
Scaffold.
So yes, ma'am. Exactly. And as a district, we're using the SIOP strategies, the shelter instruction, and that's one of the things that they tell you. You have to know who your ELL kids are.
Of course.
But you need to have a beginning with an intermediate and
advanced.
Exactly.
Combination.
You have to have a combination so there's growth and they're able to learn from each other, because these kids are smart in their ways, but they're smart.
Yes. I always thought that, having that the trio, or the beginner, intermediate, and the advanced would be kind of falling behind, but I realized that not necessarily falling behind, because they're smart in their content, but they're reteaching what they know. Is just further reiterating what they already know, so it's helping them. And of course, we're challenging them to a new lens at all times cognitively, despite what level they're at language. We challenge them too.
Yes. And that you mentioned that this year, since we're not gonna have the kids taking the math test, my previous year as an ELA teacher, as an 8th grade ELA teacher, we didn't have what we're gonna have this week. I didn't have 7 more teachers helping because of math. So previous years, what I used to do when I was teaching regular ELA, I will take my GT kids to help me with my second administration kids. So I will have for the camps. So since I didn't have teachers helping me, we didn't have enough teachers. Instead of taking or asking for more teachers, I couldn't. I will take some of my GT kids, and those will be my teachers in every station. Wow. I will have a meeting with these kids, and I will tell them, okay, on station 1 we're gonna be teaching inferencing, or station 2 we're gonna be teaching sequential order. On station 3 we're going to be teaching vocabulary, and so on and so forth. So I will have an agenda for the kids, and I will have 1 or 2 kids.
That is an excellent idea, especially when you're limited in resources. Yes, what do you do? And that's excellent that you're able to use the GT kids to your advantage.
And the GT kids feel successful. They're reviewing at the same time. You're getting them ready to present, because that's the real thing. You go to college and you're going to be doing presentations.
Right, and they're ready because they've been exposed.
Yes, ma'am. And they feel successful, and the kids feel, I guess, sometimes we have certain kids that they don't want to ask questions because they
feel less threatened with students, I'm assuming.
Yes,
right?
Yes, ma'am. Or sometimes they don't want to ask questions to the teacher. They don't want to be honest with the teacher. So they feel less stress with another student in the classroom. So that was another way to implement the camp, and it's very, very successful. Great. Very, very good idea. We're not gonna have it this year because we have resources. Yes, ma'am.
Thankfully, right?
Yes, ma'am. We have enough teachers to help us. But previous years, that's what I used to do.
That's an excellent idea.
Yes, ma'am.
That's great.
So we talk about the strategies. Mm-hmm. The strategies are going to be designed according to the data that the ELA teacher wants, and we're going to be working by categories, like we mentioned here. The interactive sessions, how important they are.
The camps,
right. And we have the resources. This year we have an awesome ELA coordinator that every time we have a meeting and we need something, that I have meetings with my department and my teachers want something, I call her and she's able to get us everything. So we're in a very good district. The technology integration. We're not very strong in technology as our neighbors. In general. I know McAllen ISD has a tremendous technology initiative, but we're working on that. right now I'm in charge of the technology implementation here in campus, and I'm working with central office to see if we're working on a plan where we're going to have every ninth grade student getting either an iPad or a Google Chrome.
Further, like to take home or
to take, yes,
wow,
very the one-to-one, the initiative, the one-to-one, and for them to have either the iPad or the Google Chrome. The district is still thinking about, and it's basically the price, what's going to be
more affordable
for the district. But either way, if the kids get an iPad, or if the kid gets an iPad, or if the kid gets a Google Chrome, as long as we expose the kid to technology, to something, yes, ma'am. The device does not matter. What you can do with the device is that what matters. And we are going to administer, after our START test, we're going to be administering a technology test that every 8th grade student is required to take. It is through learning.com. And they're going to take the test, consists of 2 parts, part 1 and part 2. And on this test, the kids are going to be asked basic questions about PowerPoint, Excel, presentations, the web, what you're supposed to do when you're using Facebook, social media, and all of that.
To check the like how much they know on technology already?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And based on the results on this assessment, we are going to see the needs of these kids and design new technology classes at the high schools.
Do we have technology classes in this campus? Or is it just keyboarding that we have?
It is only keyboarding.
We don't have business, intercommunication skills. No. I actually had now that you mentioned the level of expertise that they have in certain programs, I told the students, we're going to be working on a PowerPoint for the research, because I had done it in the past in my previous district, and they had a business class, and even if they didn't, they were exposed. It was a different type of population. They were exposed to a lot of technology, so they knew PowerPoints, they knew Excel, they knew a lot of programs. So I told the kids we're going to be working on PowerPoint. I gave them, a rubric, told them exactly what the assignment was going to be about. And I made the mistake of assuming that they knew what a PowerPoint was. When we go to the computer lab, nobody knows where the PowerPoint is. Like, they don't know how to use the PowerPoint. So I don't know much about technology, obviously it's not as much as you, but I had to give them a little mini training session on PowerPoint, because it's something so simple for us, because of course we've done it forever.
Yes,
but for them it's very difficult. And even when I was showing them the transitions of the slides, they were like very excited because they didn't know that they could do that. And I was like, this is just the beginning, like, and it's interesting, like, and it's very fulfilling to see the kids who want to learn that, because they're very happy to learn PowerPoint. Imagine when you teach them Excel, when you teach them all these other things that you.
Yes, ma'am. And that's one of the things that I told the technology department. As long as you expose the kids, because the learning is there, and we have a lot of things available on the net that they can use. You go to YouTube. You don't know how to do something, you can go to YouTube,
absolutely.
And everything. It's like the perfect teacher 24/7.
Yes.
You don't know, like in my case, you don't know how to cook, you go to YouTube and you find something there. Yes. Whatever you're looking for, it's there. And I've told the kids, a lot of the population in this school is not, compared to other schools that we have in La Jolla, we're like 50%. Not all of a lot of our kids have access to a phone, to a phone. But a lot of the kids only use the phone, of course, to call parents, to text, and the social media. And I've told my kids, yes, you have a phone, but it's not only for Facebook. Look at all the things that you can do with the phone. As long as we expose them and we as teachers tell them this is what we can do, they can do miracles. Yes. I have 2 7th grade classes where most of my kids are ELL kids. And I'm very proud of those kids, because in 7th grade, our kids are required to take the writing test and the reading test. It's 2 exams plus the math test, right? So these kids, I was able to get iPads for these kids. So my kids were able to create an Apple ID. With the Apple ID, they were able to download apps, and they're able to create, send and receive emails. So that was the first thing we did. I got them familiar with the iPad. This is an iPad. This is how you use it, on and off. And it took me several weeks for them to understand the use of the iPad. After that, I said, okay, now we're going to have to create an email address, because I'm going to be sending you your homework. We're not going to be using paper. Now I'm going to be sending you your homework through email. We're also using Edmodo into our lessons, where it's like a Facebook for schools.
Facebook for schools.
Yes, and the kids get very excited with that. So going back to these kids, we created the Apple ID, we created the Gmail. Then we were able to download an application that I in love with. It's PDF Expert. This application, you're able to take
Mis
notes on
amigas.
PDF documents. So what I did,
Ustedes
I had
quisiera-
a story for them. I will scan the story, create a
Mrs.
PDF
Cano,
document,
Ms. Gomez.
and email the story to them. They will get their email on the iPad, and then on the iPad they will tell the
Once again,
email
thank you, and also
to
to the
send
tutors
that
that went out,
PDF
all the students.
document
Once again, thank
to
you
this
for-
app.
Wow.
Once they have
For IGMS.
the reading
Also a
story
reminder
on
that the
the
eighth
the
grade
application
students
on
will have a login
they're able to
on
take
May
notes.
15th.
On
They
the
can
surface
underline.
Start selling tickets
Yes,
for
with the
$40
interactive pen or
starting
with
this
the-
Yes,
week.
ma'am.
Wow.
Yes,
that's
ma'am. I went to
great.
Walmart and I got pens for them. I bought the pens, very inexpensive ones, and everybody got a pen. Everybody was very excited because
Oh,
now
I
instead
didn't
of
even know you
working
could do
on
that. That's
paper,
excellent.
instead of working on paper, they're working on their iPads. They have the reading passage. So we do
Wow.
the strategies that
Also
we do on
reminder
paper,
students,
we
just
were
to,
doing
you know,
them on the
continue with
iPad.
their behavior.
And they were
You need
very
to
happy
be
about it.
exhibiting
And
good behavior to
they're
attend
very,
the future events here at
it's
IGMS.
a win-win
Of course, we did
situation.
send a letter home
You have them engaged.
for your
You
parents to
tell them
sign.
if you don't do your strategies, I'm gonna take your iPad away, and of course they're gonna
They'd rather
perform
do
for
that
you.
than
Yes,
the
ma'am.
paper.
And then
That's
you're like, you
great.
want paper again?
When the
No.
teachers are doing
So
to help
let's
us
go.
out
You
with
gotta be
duty.
working. So all of the strategies
there is a
that
comic
we
book club
have
meeting
on
today
paper, we were
after
working
school.
on them on an iPad, and
great.
you're exposing them, you're getting them ready for college. Because once ago, by the time these kids are in college, they're gonna be taking every single test in a computer.
Yes.
See, so
It's an excellent idea.
Happy
Maybe we
birthday
can
to
discuss
Mr.
with the 8th grade teachers, since they're
Juan
going to be doing
Garcia
reading
from all of us
strategies
here
on
at IGMS.
paper.
Happy birthday.
You know, maybe a
These are all
day
the
or two
announcements.
they
Have a
can
great
use
day.
the iPads and that excellent app that you're saying. I mean, I'm sure that I didn't know about that program. I'm sure, you know, a lot of the teachers might not know either. And it's great that the kids are able to use the interactive pens and use the iPads for their strategies. We're going to be using some of the strategies that Marta Morales came to present, right?
yes, ma'am.
That would be
we
great
have a
if they're able.
consultant, Marta Morales, 2 years ago, and she was teaching us to teach the kids how to start the test or look at the test in a different way. So we're gonna be incorporating all of that once again based on the teacher's data. That because remember everything has to be prescribed for
For the student, for the
yes,
needs of the
for
student.
groups.
That's
And probably we're not the needs for 8.1 are gonna be different from the needs from 8.2, but that's when we as reading specialists come into place, how we can uniform and help everybody at the same time. Yes, ma'am.
And did you find that the students, because I also had my students in the past create an email account, they didn't know how to create an email account. Did you find that a lot of them didn't have email accounts or Apple IDs? They didn't know. They were completely lost, right?
Yes, ma'am. I had to have one class session to teach them step by step. This is what you have to do. And another thing, this is going to. I'm very strict with usernames and passwords. We're working with kids, so I tell them, I give them a formula for every username and password that we create for an email, for any Web 2.0 tool that we can create on the net, right? So my kids already know our formula is for the username, it's your first name, last name, and your school ID.
Great.
And for your password, it's your last name and your school ID. And that way, because if you start using technology, you're gonna start using several Web 2.0 tools. And if you don't have control over your password, then you can lose a lot of instructional time with that.
And if we forget our password so easily, I can imagine the students,
kids.
right?
So they already know. I have one place in my classroom where I have the formula, and they know the username. That's a formula for the username. That's a formula for the password, and everybody follows the same criteria.
That's great.
Yes, ma'am.
And I know some of your students are going to be also attending with the 8th grade teachers, and if we discuss with them the probability of using the PDF document interactive notes, maybe your students, although they're not, you know, might not be the highest students, they're going to feel a sense of entitlement and great if they're able to show the other students how to do this because they've done it with you, so that's excellent. I'm very excited to share this with the other teachers. So.
In fact, my sister works in McAllen ISD.
All student council members,
My
please
sister
report to
teaches
B
math,
28.
but I was telling
All
my
student
sister
council
what I
members.
do with my kids, my 7th graders. So my sister talked to her ELA teacher from her team, and she's very interested on what I'm doing with the kids. So we are gonna be my kids are gonna be presenting
Wow,
to
that is excellent.
her kids through the iPad, because we have an application on the iPad. Let me show it to you.
Is it similar to, what was that program where networking or not networking? Is that what it's called? Where you're able
We're
to
gonna
see
be
what
since
I'm
they
on the
have
computer?
iPads and we have iPads. We're gonna be using FaceTime.
Wow,
So I'm
that
gonna
is
be,
great.
we're gonna be, cause I told them that I needed to wait for the second administration of the 8th grade test, because
course.
right now I'm working with this. But after that, my 7th graders are gonna be teaching those kids, the 7th grade students from McAllen, how to use the PDF expert, and we're
With
gonna be
FaceTime.
communicating with FaceTime.
Wow,
And it's
that is
FaceTime,
excellent.
and it's a software that I have in my computer, where you can be projecting your iPad wirelessly.
Oh my God.
So my kids are very excited about that. So we're gonna be teaching McAllen now.
Wow, that's great to see that, the students that we have are at-risk students are the ones doing the teaching to other kids. That's
See, and
excellent.
McAllen has had this initiative for, I think they're going to their 4th or 5th year already with iPads. So having
Wow.
my kids with not even 1 year with an iPad, teaching them, it's like, okay. Like, wow.
Wow, that is great. I'm glad that that's, and maybe that's something that the reading teachers can like, and then we can incorporate it next year. And hopefully, like you said, La Jolla is looking into buying iPads, and instead of the students writing notes traditionally on paper, now during class they can do it, interactively, just like they do in college, university settings, because walk into a college classroom and there is no paper anymore. Everything's online.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yes,
that's great.
Yes, ma'am. And well, we talk about the technology integration. I'm
concept of-
sorry, I get very excited. On
I know, no,
technology.
that's excellent. I mean, I get excited too to learn new things, so it's excellent.
And we talk about the consequences and the incentives that we're gonna use for the kids. Also, another part of the incentives is that we're planning to have something special for them next Friday.
Oh,
Either
that's
get
great.
them ice cream or hot dogs or something, a detail for them, something that
It
motivates
rewards them. Yes,
Yes,
that's something
motivates
to look
them.
forward to.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, that's
And
great.
any questions that you have, Ms. Garcia?
No, I look forward to the meeting that we're going to have. We're going to meet with the 8th grade teachers. Of course, Ms. Sarah Torres, our special ed representative, couldn't come back. Apparently, she had to go to an ARD meeting, but she will be with us in the next meeting,
Yes.
along with the reading teachers, and I look forward for you presenting that technology
Thank
to
you.
them. So, great.
Thank
Okay,
you so
thank
much.
you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.